Gaming. Hello, tryhards and try-softs. Welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at a little recap of what the Zero Championship Autumn Day 1 looked like. So, unlike usual, they decided to stream Day 1 this time as well, which they normally don't. They normally just stream the top 8 or top 16, just the top cut of the Zero Championship, but this time they decided to stream the entire thing. And on today's Day 1 stream, we got to see a bunch of stuff. Not only was this sort of the first time we got to see the competitive environment of set 12, you know, with Revengers running around, Ethics, and Link Joker, and all that kind of stuff, and also Bermuda decking people out. So a lot of different things happened, and today we're going to take a look at what the top cut as well as the clan representation was like in this event. Now, if you don't know, we will be live restreaming the English tournament for this, so basically just restreaming the same thing but in English next Sunday. I think it begins at 1 p.m. GST, which means 5 a.m. for me, but you know, I'll do my best to wake up on time. So we're gonna look at that. That will be going from the top 16. I don't think they'll show every match for the top 16, maybe just going forward from the top 8, which is what I'm hoping for, but it should be pretty exciting. And so what players can we expect on this coming Day 2? So here you can see the finalists. So there's 16 total finalists. So we have Kai, not WCC Kai unfortunately, Hikari, Baron, Peace, Cardfight Nation, Stanley, Agito, and Aren. So a lot of familiar faces here. Actually, all these players, you know, both Western as well as Japanese, are all people that often top tournaments, which goes to show that, you know, if you put in the time and effort to practice and get better at Zero, it is basically like you're always going to be ending up at the top. Like a lot of these players, they always are at the top and they find themselves topping tournaments and doing really well. So it's like, it's cool to see that, especially people like Baron that we've seen so many times, in Aren, you know, coming back, the previous champion of the very first Zero Championship. Then looking forward past that, in 9th we have Razuraito, then we have Tatsuya in 10th, Riche in 11th, Haru in 12th, Kutsudama in 13th, Reverse Fighter in 14th, 15th is Bifo, and in 16th we have Rukeda. So these are the players that have qualified, and it's going to be pretty exciting. I will also go over the decks that they brought, so we have a good impression of not just what the percentages of use are in terms of all the participants. So of course, even to participate in this tournament, you had to either be at the top of the ranked ladders for several seasons or qualify through the qualifying tournaments. So you already have to be a good player, you know, or get really lucky in the qualifying tournaments to actually make it to this final one. And then on top of that, basically get 6 wins in order to be safely in, or 5 wins and 1 loss, and you'll most likely be in. So that's pretty strong. But let's take a look at the clan distribution. So this is supposed to be a snapshot. So you can see we have 34% Narukami. So Narukami is still looking super hot, even with the release of set 12. You know, it got support with Vowing Sword Reverse, or Vowing Saber Reverse rather, and of course that is really powerful. Quite a few people have been seen using Lawrence Force Dragon and stuff like that. So there's been improvements and changes done to Narukami, but it still feels like, you know, one of the best decks, which it definitely felt like it was falling off already in the Japanese format in the TCG when this set was around. Then of course we have Revengers at almost 30%, so 29.2, definitely a huge representation as expected. You know, Revengers are just really popular, very strong. A lot of people would argue that they are the best deck right now, and you know, it's just cool to see that they're doing so well and are represented so well. Then we have Kagero at 8%, represented by Miwa. So here, you know, it's like Seal Dragons, Dauntless Drive the End, those kind of variants. Then Link Joker at 6.5%, so this is Wave 1 Link Joker. Again, a lot of people are discussing Link Joker. I'll make my own video talking about it as well soon, about, you know, Link Joker in Zero so far, how it doesn't feel as strong as people expected it to be, and it feels more of like something that you can play around quite straightforwardly, so it doesn't feel as scary in that sense either, so that's also quite nice. Then we have Novas at 6%, which is, you know, mostly comprised of different Bestiary variants, as well as Ethics Blau still showing up. We saw that on stream, and so it's pretty cool to see that, because Novas definitely got some really strong support. It feels like Ethics Reverse can one-shot anything when they're at 3 damage, which is really good because you can deny their Break Ride as well, which makes for interesting mirror matches. And then 15% Other. So what is that 15.8% consist consist of? Well, it consists of Royals at 3.8%, Oracle Think Tank at 3.5%, Gold Paladin at 2.3%, Spike Brothers at 1.9%, Angel Feather at 1.2%. It's pretty interesting to see. Touch Kaze at 1.2%. We actually saw Touch Kaze come up on stream twice. Then we had Alco Force at 1.2%, Bermuda at 0.4%, which I'm assuming is the only one Bermuda, and Murakumo at 0.4% as well, which, even though it did really well in the qualifying tournaments, it seems like only one person brought it and didn't seem to come out on top. Or did they? Let's take a look. So huge thank you to Darkbeam555 for sending this, because this is the bracket from the actual tournament, and so he came 21st, so really close to actually getting to the top. I believe he had 4 wins, 2 losses, so that's barely not enough to make it. But anyone that had 5 wins, no, actually not everyone, 2 people that went 5-1 actually didn't make it, but almost everyone did. And so we can see here some of the uses. So let me just throw up the screenshot here. So we can see Kai brought Narukami in Shadows, a pretty common list, because Hikari also brought Narukami in Shadows. Then again, 3rd place, Narukami in Shadows. Then in 4th place, finally, we see Shadows and Link Joker. So Narukami in Shadows is an interesting combo, because Shadows can play around a lot of decks with heavy removal, such as Narukami and Link Joker, or Link Joker isn't removal, but, you know, kind of like pauses your field for the time being. And pairing that up with Narukami is interesting, because Narukami is definitely, it's also aggressive when it needs to be, but at the same time, it's just very bursty, very explosive, can win games, you know, when you're on the brink of losing. And so it feels like a pretty popular combo, and definitely, you know, we could see that in the statistics as well. But then we see Shadows and Link Joker, so that's very different play styles. You know, Link Joker is a very grindy deck, I would say, because your opponent is often, if they don't rush you, then it's playing a grind game, like not giving you 4 damage, not letting you break right, because most of your locks don't happen until you are pushed to 4 damage. So for a lot of variants of Link Joker, that's kind of how it goes. But then in 5th, we have Cardfight Nation. A lot of you people might know him, so Nation is a pretty well-known member of our community, and actually, he popped into my stream just the other day, and he was asking for recommendations on which decks to bring for the Zero Championship, and I told him to bring Ethics, because he wanted to bring 2 lists that could counter Link Joker, and I told him Ethics can actually still fight against Link Joker really well, even when you have some units locked, because you don't need that much on your board to pull off a good Ethics reverse turn. And so he went with it, and so his lineup is Nova, Grappler, and Shadows. Of course, Shadows is a great Link Joker matchup, but Nova's, his Ethics reverse list is on his Twitter, so I'll put that in the description for you guys to check. But yeah, like, honestly, it's a really strong deck. I've been playing it a fair bit myself as well, and it has a lot of potential to just like one-shot a lot of decks, especially Link Joker. You can easily just kind of like swing arrears, restand them, and then go in with Ethics reverse a few times and just kind of pop off. And if you like time your restands well enough and, you know, scale in numbers well, those of you in global playing Ethics Blau now will of course know this as well with Yamato no Drake and Golden Anglet. You can basically just one-shot your opponent pretty well, and so that deck, it has a lot of potential, and therefore it's cool to see that Nation managed to make it in with 5-1 score. Then we have Stanley, who brought Narukami and Spike Brothers, so here we see some more spikes. So spikes were pretty low in representation, but still, you know, I said this before, when Link Joker was first revealed, spikes will have a good matchup against it, because their circles just disappear on a bad end turn, and therefore you have nothing to worry about, basically. So you empty out your board, your opponent doesn't have much to lock, and then you just do it again next turn, but a bit lighter. So it's really good. Spikes definitely feel like they can easily fight at this point as well, but of course, with a lot of break ride decks, the biggest question is always, what can they do after they are rushed? So both Ethics Buster and Spikes and a lot of these decks, if the opponent rushes them to 4 and they have to ride their first grade 3 when they're on 4, they often cannot survive to get to that next turn where they break ride, or when they do get to it, they're on much lower resources and therefore can't do it as powerfully as they normally could. So it really depends if the opponent is able to capitalize off of that and push the opponent right. So it's always reading the situation of the game, and that's why I really praise these players that managed to make it to day 2, because a lot of them are people that often top tournaments. So it's nice to see that the people that are topping over and over again, they have a good understanding of these matchups, they have a good understanding of how to play against certain decks and how to adapt your strategy depending on what and who you're facing. Then we had Agito with Shadows and Narukami, so the lineup we're quite used to here, and then Aren, our previous champion, with Shadows and Narukami too. So we're seeing Shadows and Narukami throughout all of the top 8. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 5 I believe 5 out of the 8 top 8 have actually brought Narukami Shadows, so pretty big representation. Then in 9th place, we have again Kagero Shadows this time. So Kagero, as we talked about, is one of the decks that can easily kind of fight against all these popular decks now as well, because it's still quite bursty. It's good at, you know, just removing the board, and it's good at just like, you know, swinging, literally what you need to be doing. And then looking forward, we have in 10th place, we have Tatsuya with Narukami Shadows, again, very common lineup. Riche with Shadows Narukami. Then we have Haru with Shadows, you guessed it, Narukami. And then we have in 13th, Kutsutama with OTT Narukami. So here, Narukami seems to be the sort of, it's either Shadows or Narukami that's always staying, but Narukami's been coming up more as like the B deck for some of these, but it definitely feels like it's either Shadows or Narukami that people take as their B deck, and then they play either both or they play their personal one. So here we see OTT still coming up. You know, Tsukiyomi has always been seen as sort of like the go-to tournament deck because of how it functions in Zero, and you know, that definitely makes sense. Then we have the Reverse Fighter with Kagero Narukami, so that's again, I think the same one that we saw just a bit earlier. Oh no, it was Kagero Shadow Paladin. So Kagero Narukami, you know, double dragon time, double Kai feature. Then we have P-Fold with Shadows Narukami once again, and then Uruketa with Narukami Shadows. So all of top 16, we've seen this pattern of Narukami Shadows. So even though, you know, we see a lot of different decks in the actual amount of submissions and like the people playing in the tournament itself, when we look at the top 16 players that qualified, Narukami Shadows looks to be the pattern, basically, just sort of the go-to for a lot of people and kind of the safe picks of this season. So it's cool to see because both decks, you know, got insane support in this set. Narukami especially got not that much support, but very high quality support with Vowing Saber, and they're already really good from their first set of support too. Whereas for Shadows, I mean, the Revengers are just really good, just as they used to be, and they didn't change much about them outside of reducing some costs, and obviously that is quite appreciated for Zero. But yeah, so that's sort of like my snapshot summary of the Vanguard Zero Championship Autumn Day 1. So it's going to be exciting to see how these 16 players face off in the finals on the next Sunday, so Championship Sunday, baby. So it's gonna be exciting to see how it goes. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing if people like Aren can actually run it back and get the title once again. I think that'd be a really cool sort of story narrative for a player in Zero as well. You know, I follow a lot of these players, you know, and see their stories and, you know, their experiences in tournaments and in ranked, and you know, it's really cool to see these narratives develop over time. So more so than the decks and representations, which are obviously important data for players to gear up for ranked, I'm really curious to see how the narratives of these players will evolve as we go through the tournament. But yeah, that's basically it for me today. That was all I wanted to really talk about, just give you a quick little cover of what's going on in the competitive sphere of Vanguard Zero in set 12. Once the actual championship has concluded on Championship Sunday, I'll do a tier list afterwards as well, because we'll have a really good grasp of what the meta is. And of course, I believe the players are allowed to change decks before Championship Sunday, so you know, now they had to pick decks that can safely get them to day 2, but in day 2 they can easily, I think they can still switch it up and play something fresh. But on that note, that's gonna be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.